Randy. So, couple things to talk about before we go out there. So we're going to talk about the Wyoming Association of County Officers Conference in September and whether we want to sponsor that. Is that something you're ready to talk about, John?
I consider to give it a try.
Okay.
The Natorney County Commissioners have requested a contribution towards the meeting that's going to occur September 24th through the 26th. And they're expecting about 300 county elected officers. And I believe Carter indicated that the letter had gone out to you folks and maybe I had some discussion with you regarding this. It's my understanding that there's a couple options to look at. One is to just to contribute like $2,000 toward this event, and another possibility that was looked at kind of in-kind type of activity, and I believe that was suggested that perhaps the city could get some tickets for an event at the event center and maybe sponsor 25 tickets to that event. And I understand the cost of that would be about $1,300. And I'm looking at Tim because I'm hoping he knows more about it, but that was my understanding that there was.
Just a little change to that. Actually, what the promoter agreed is they let us basically pay 50% of each ticket, which is about $55. So we'd be able to get 50 tickets for about $1,300.
To what? Yeah.
It's Bohemian Rhapsody group, Queen. It's their Broadway musical, which is We Will Rock.
So I know that Carter is indicated he is supportive of doing something for them. So I guess that at this point, those were the options that I'm aware of. That, of course, the other options to do nothing if that's what you choose. But as far as contributing, those were the options that were being presented.
The in-kind being the 50%. Steve?
I had an opportunity to talk to a commissioner, and I think that they more so would prefer if there was just a monetary donation and not the tickets is really the way they'd rather go. So that's what I'd be in favor of.
And where would the money come from, Tom?
We would find that in the budget and find an appropriate line item. It could be okay.
And their ask was how much, cash?
2,000.
That's what I understand.
20?
2,000.
How many people are they expecting?
They are expecting approximately 300 county elected officers. It'll be a 3-day event.
What are they doing?
It's their annual Wyoming Association of County Officers Conference. As I understand it, they have one of these every year. It's located in places around the state, and this year happens to be in Casper.
Do other municipalities do these types of things for them?
I am not sure. I can't answer that.
First time it's come up that I know of.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it. So, obviously, 300 people come to town. It's a nice little boost for us for 3 days. They always like people to go through the community promotions process when everyone else does that, but I doubt that these folks know anything about that.
As I understand, we would be listed, the city would be listed as a sponsor, so there would be some recognition for this.
What do you all think? Sound like worth $2,000?
I'd go for half of that, maybe.
I think it's worth it just to show goodwill.
I think, yeah, that's one comment I would make is we've had an up and down relationship with the commissioner group, and we've been more positive. Recently, we had the whole snafu with the extraterritorial jurisdiction that caused a lot of stress and friction, and it would be a good gesture on our part, I would say.
Okay.
So, I think you can scare that money out. We're a little ahead of schedule with our tax revenues.
Direct us to do so, we will.
Anybody have any concerns about doing this or opposed to it? Why don't we just get a thumbs up and see how many thumbs we get?
There's 5.
There's 5. Okay, good enough, thank you. Mr. Mayor. This is here to talk about the Hogadon lights, I believe. Is that what's next, Tom?
That's correct. Some of you will recall, the Prince of Hogadon appeared before council before with the idea of
Like the Morgan lights.
providing lights in Hogadon for night skiing. And at that time, council had kind of given the direction to go ahead and explore funding opportunities and fundraising opportunities. And it sounds like they made progress in that and have some other commitments, and I believe we're here to present that and.
Were all of you
and
here
move
for
forward.
those previous presentations? Were you, okay. So you're familiar with the project.
Tim, do you have?
Go ahead, Tim.
I'll just kind of set the table. If we do have to hear from John, he's here in the room, obviously, for a little support from me, but basically, we want to kind of bring you up to speed. We just had a couple milestones, which is John and his group was able to secure the financing for the project in its entirety. If you also recall, for those that were here at the time, we put in a backstop for operational costs. You know, we all realize that a lot of times we get donations that actually end up impacting the city's finances for sometimes ever. And so in this particular case, we did build in an operational backstop, whereas if the expenses exceeded revenue, they would pay and basically fill the hole or the gap, if you will. Local philanthropists has agreed to fund us for 3 years on the operational losses that we could incur. We believe that the max that could be would be about 60,000 on an annual basis, and he's agreed up to that amount. So I think it's pretty safe to say we'll get some revenue that'll help offset the expenses. So we think that's like a worst case scenario. So really, that milestone with the funding, and then also the milestone that we did do 5 test holes with a company called Torxel. They basically drill into we pick the worst of the worst places to drill, put in that foundational support. They drilled 5 in those areas, and they basically leave the drill bit in the ground, and that acts as the foundational support for the light poles. And so they were able to do that with really no trouble. I mean, so kind of the feasibility and everything that we're looking at, and the expenses that we're likely to incur as far as construction costs that would be absorbed by Mr. Lutz and the Friends of Hogadon, everything seems to be on track. So kind of more just an opportunity to see the new council and kind of bring you up to speed with what we talked about before, and then also to see if there's any additional questions, concerns.
Questions for Tim?
I'd forgotten when we first talked about this, was this gonna be overhead or underground in terms of providing power?
Underground.
Okay. So we still got a trench between each light post.
Great point, Mr. Mayor, Councilman. The good thing is we already have some of that infrastructure already in place with our snowmaking equipment, and we probably never run both simultaneously. So where possible, we'll be tapping into those infrastructure, as opposed to like trenching all the way from the lodge, say, down or something.
So these are relatively low power lights, as I recall
Okay.
anyway.
Mr. Mayor,
A few
Councilman,
kW, something
that's
like that.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
Very efficient.
Okay, Steve?
Which rounds are they planning on lighting?
Boomerang and Park. And then they really do have the vision that if everything goes good operationally and construction wise, that there'd be a phase 2 and it would, include Dreadnought.
Steve?
That was my question, so.
John, anything you'd like to add to what Tim said?
It's just been a good door open. It's just been a real neat glide path for this community, really. It just seemed to be a lot of support in the private sector and the donors. And when you talk about it with the kids, we did a lot of polling with the kids around from middle school to high school. They're excited. They like this idea. And that's really our target audience, is those kids. Get them up there after school. I always said to Tim, you guys created a problem when you put that lodge up there. That was the onus of this, of why we wanted it. It's such a beautiful place. Why close it at 4? Let's keep it going for the kids and young people and adults like me with gray hair who want to get, instead of going to gym and do the elliptical, I'd rather go skiing. So it's turning out, and Tim, I gotta just hand it to him. You got the right man in the right position. He's awesome.
Enough said.
Drop the
I'm
mic.
saying, I'm just saying.
Don't go any further. The recorder will get stressed out.
Mike?
What's Spectre, have they said anything about
You know,
any
that's,
of this?
Mr. Mayor, that's a great piece because they do view it as an opportunity. However, we're really gonna be watching expenses, cause as we know, Wednesday, Thursday, those are kind of tough days, you know, to get enough people for the food and beverage piece is exactly what I'm imagining you're pointing to, right?
Well, yeah, because I know from my experience ski patrolling in Crescent Hills, Iowa, and night skiing at other places, they turn the chair just so that they can sell you beer and that kind of stuff. That's where those operations, those nighttime operations make money, is on the food and beverage. And if they're not working the food and beverage side of that, I don't think it's gonna make, you know, I think it's gonna just be deeper in the hole. But that's been my experience and observation with those outfits that I've known about. But I think it's a great idea, let's go.
Ken?
On the email or on the prepacket, it says the Friends of Hogadon asked the city if they could gift a lighting project to Hogadon ski area. Gift as in what?
Meaning they're gonna front all the construction costs, all the equipment, basically say it's all yours, city of Casper, but, cause we have to take it over, it's on our facility, so basically we have to have it in our possession, so that's the
Okay.
gift.
Gotcha.
Would be kind of all the infrastructure if you.
Like the Davis Street Station, it was all fundraising and they gave it to us.
Somewhere.
What's the construction schedule? Do you guys have any details on that yet, or
Well, really, we're,
speculation?
they're kind of hoping that they'll have all the foundational supports in, by the first week in September. And then after that, you know, back to Councilman Hopkins' point, you know, we have some trenching and some stuff like that, so.
Like this year?
We're
Right now?
hoping, we're driving for,
Oh, I didn't
when we
realize.
open up the lodge in November, December, hopefully that'll all be on point, ready to roll. That's really what we're hoping for.
Well, congratulations on all the fundraising activities, that's very impressive. Okay, other questions for John? John? Nothing you need from us other than if you put the lights in, we'll accept it. Okay,
Thank you.
fair enough. Okay, anything on tonight's agenda that people want to ask questions about or cross our firm?
I'm sure I'm reading it right, I just wanna make sure. On 14A6, it's like a consent item. It's talking about the Shamrock Environmental Corporation and like our agreement with them. If I'm reading this right, our original agreement with them was 3 million and now it's been reduced to 2.45. That sounds correct, right?
Tom, this has been complicated, would you mind just giving us a little overview on what's happened with the First Street, unless that's
If you don't
Andrew's?
mind, I would defer to Andrew on that.
'Cause as far as the bidding and the amount budgeted and what you had to do to make it happen.
Yeah,
just
Your
kinda
Honor,
give us an
Counsel,
overview.
this is somewhat unusual, but you're absolutely correct.
Okay.
The original bid came in at 3 point, whatever that number
Yep.
was. And we have negotiated some of their prices to come down, and we simply eradicated some of the bid items out of their contract completely to get to that revised bid out. So you got the original contract with the change order to get it down to that 2 point.
Because the original engineering estimate was below where we're.
The original engineering estimate was 2.2, but after talking with Stantec, they blew their estimate. They had a bust in their estimate. There was no way it was gonna come in at 2.2. But we've taken out some of the stuff that our local contractors can do. We'll bid that out separately and get some more competitive bids. But the bulk of the end stream of the restoration is gonna be done by this company.
Well, that's great, I just wanted to confirm that I was reading it right.
You're reading it absolutely correctly.
I mean, it is a concern when the engineering estimates are that far off, but not much we can do at this point to get it done. Okay, anything else on the agenda? All right, can we relax for a few minutes and head on out? Anything else, Ken?
I do, and I'm not looking for an answer now, but as I've mentioned, I've been getting constant emails still regarding the birds. And the fact that it goes on to say that we sent the birds to Gabriel Foundations across the borders, state line, to them, but then it is being said that the ECA listing is saying they cannot cross back to Wyoming state lines. So some of the birds, not all, but some of the birds.
ECA.
I don't know what ECA is, honestly. It said Fox News last night and stated that several birds would not be able to be adopted to Wyoming folks due to the ECA listing. They cannot cross state lines. So how in the world do they cross from here to there, but they can't come back to here? And a lot of folks are pretty upset about that, which I don't blame them, because they feel like they've been lied to, when all along they've been told, yes, you'll be able to put in an application to adopt these birds. Now it's being said that they can't. I think that's an issue.
That's kind of where I am.
Liz, is
How
this your
fact
purview
checked is this?
at this point? No.
She's pointing at me.
Oh, okay.
So, Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Councilman, council, you know, a lot of work went into finding a safe place for those birds to land, pun intended. So a lot of people have been upset over and trying to second guess it every step of the way. But you know, this is the first I'm hearing about that. But they were well aware of what they were getting into. They were making even in that first week, they were establishing potential adopters up here in Casper. So they've lived up to everything that I've asked them to do. I'll have to do some research into this, but there were a lot of work to allow them to go to Colorado was done through the USDA, the state of Colorado's Department of Agriculture, and getting all of that squared away, and so there was no laws broken. Getting them there, I'm going to have to research and see if there's an actual problem of those particular endangered species coming back to Casper. But that's the first I've heard of it. Other than that, everything has worked out good. The press coverage that has been going on in the Denver area has been extremely positive for us, and our citizens have absolutely. I can't vouch for whether or not they're emailing you, but they're not calling us anymore. I've responded to a bunch of citizens that feedback. Oh, thanks for the information. We realize a lot of work went into that. We understand it now. So the hubbub has died down rapidly on this, but I still feel that the Gabriel Foundation was the reputable organization out there. So more than a few people have reached out to me to say that they are absolutely the national experts in this area, including the United States Department of Agriculture has them as the premier place for them to get these services. So the federal government has chosen them as the best in the United States, let alone in our region.
Okay, yeah, if you could find that information out for me, if that in fact those birds cannot cross state line for whatever reason, if I can know that, I'd appreciate it, so I can let other people know why or what the issue. In a sense, why can't they?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I will try to research that out for you, but I will vehemently stand by. This was the proper organization to receive them, and if a technicality is preventing a few of those birds because of their specialized needs from being in the proper location, it was still the right decision to do. But I'll find out if they are prohibited to coming back to us. But I know for a fact that they are working with Casper residents to adopt some of those birds out. So they've been extremely transparent, very professional, and essentially speaking, a lot of people were just passionate about this. A lot of it misinformation. I'll report back to you.
Thank you.
Anything anything else going on we need to talk about before we take a break? Okay. Good enough. Start at 6.